Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Arbor Adventures. And this is the beginning of Session 4. What happened in Session 4? So we are telling the story of a Forgotten Realms, Sword Coast, Sun Elf named Duolos. He has an empath assassin, right? He has an incredibly dangerous cursed blade, and he went to Phandalin to find his missing brother. Okay. Oh, and actually, let's talk about this. So one of the things that we're doing is we're doing a revelation style campaign, right? So one of the things I really love about Dungeons and Dragons, I love to run Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to do it. And if somebody comes along and says, "Hey, let's play Dungeons and Dragons," I want to do it like tomorrow. Like I want to get in fast, right? And that's exactly what's been happening with this campaign. We are revealing, we're revealing facts about Duolos as the campaign emerges, and so we're learning about it, right? And in this campaign, we learned something really critical, which is his family history. So Duolos is an assassin, and he has served as an assassin for a few years now. Now, the reason he was able to go out into the Forgotten Realms, and actually, we don't even know which organization Duolos assassinates for yet, right? So, and we're using resist the urge to explain, right? Like, so basically, your character has all these potentials until you lock something in place, right? And then once that's done, then that kind of shapes that character's future, and that's perfectly good to do. But a lot of times you got to realize, if you say everything up front, right, you lock the potential of that character, right? You add critical details about their family, about their siblings, about their parents when it's needed, right? You don't just do an info dump at the beginning. You allow the character to organically grow, and that is really happening in this campaign. I'm really loving just seeing Duolos kind of take form. Really fascinating character, right? But we found that his Sun Elf family, they are they are Sun Elves, right? Which means that they're prosperous, right? Because these are high elves. These are elves that are very, as a culture, they're very specifically careful about maintaining a level of success, and they're somewhat snooty isn't the best word. They're pretentious, right? But often that pretense comes from the idea that we are a powerful culture, and we want to retain respect, and frankly, we're doing it better than you, right? So he comes from the Sun Elves, and his family specifically. So the Sun Elves, they do all kinds of different crafts, like most elves, right? They deal with the forest itself, and then also, much like the dwarves, they do some crafting. But Duolos's family has a history of assassination skill, which has been built over centuries, right? Now, of course, it is secret within the Elf Society, but it's a little bit of an open secret, right? There are those that know his family has, a dark edge to it, and of course, they have like a business that they present to the world, like almost import export. You know what I'm saying? Wink, wink, right? So they're an import export, but everybody knows this family builds assassins, right? And so most of the family members are trained assassins, right? And then also they train people beyond their family, right? Now we haven't answered the question yet of if that includes non-elves or elves, but we're getting there, right? So this was really good. I really enjoyed, and one of the things that's nice is this is exactly the way a Dungeons and Dragons campaign should be, right? So it's me, the Dungeon Master, and the Golden Dragon Master. One Dragon Master, one player character. And boy, I have to tell you, it is refreshing being able to have all the time necessary to tell the story of one player character, right? And not have to kind of cram it in. And I've really grown to really, I think, so it's really interesting the way Dungeons and Dragons. I think the shape of the world, people believe that Dungeons and Dragons is a game, so they bring a bunch of friends, they bring 4 or 5 friends around the table, and then they run that for years, right? And I understand that, but I do think a maturing dungeon master and a maturing dragon master are going to move to smaller campaigns with less dragon masters. And the reason why is, as you become a more mature dragon master, you have so much to say, and there's so much in the story that can center around you, and there's less, and you have the ability. And like this golden dragon master, man, he is filling every session with these really voluminous like story scenes that are growing, and they're growing rapidly, right? They're really, I don't think there would be a ton of time for other players at the table, but maybe I'm wrong there, right? It's good, but it's interesting. So but it is really very cool. I'm really enjoying seeing Duolos kind of grow out. So so we learned that about Duolos. At this point, we start the session with Duolos and Dragon and his ally, a non-player character. I call that a Dungeons Dragons entity, right? So my DM entity, Dragonborn warrior Grax, okay, who is allied to Duolos, right? So at this point, they are in Phandalin. Actually, they were at Phandalin, but they went from Phandalin to the Phandalin Dwarf Miners Garnet Mine, one of 6 mines that they have. They have 3 silver mines, 1 garnet mine, 1 sapphire mine, and 1 ruby mine, right? So they're at the garnet mine. And so Duolos has followed them there, and they go 6 floors down, right? And Duolos discovers his brother there with Voronway, and they are speaking to Eof, who is the dwarf lead miner at the garnet mine, okay? And Voronway is explaining her plan, and her brother is there, and Duolos has snuck down to the 6th level. Well, at that point, the dam breaks, right? The Demeth, leader of the woodcutters, has brought his men, the woodcutters, and they are now flooding the mine from the nearby river, right? And they intend to kill every single dwarf in the mine. And the reason why is, you know, there's animosity because the dwarf miners aren't buying wood from the woodcutters anymore. And the biggest thing is Thera, the leader of the dwarf miners, you know, was really kind of antagonizing Demeth, and because she didn't need him anymore, and she's like, what are you going to do about it? And this is Demeth's answer. He's going to kill 60 dwarves, right? To say, you don't ever disrespect me, like, and frankly, we don't like that you've, you know, cut off this, this commerce, but the reality is you don't disrespect me, and if you do, you're going to pay with blood, right? And so she's like really kind of setting down the line, saying, hey, you know, you don't disrespect me. So at this point, Grax hears the flooding coming, right? Duolos hears the flooding coming, and Duolos is the only person in the mine who actually knows what's happening. So he jumps into the room and he says, listen, everybody, the mine is flooding, and we have to move. We have to act immediately if we're going to save our own lives, because right now this entire mine is about to flood with water, right? So Grax immediately jumps up, and Grax says, so one, I said, hey, you know, what is your plan to get everybody out of here to the Gold Dragon Master? And he's like, and he did not have a plan other than telling everyone and then relying on, and it was smart because, like, you know, he's brand new, he just arrived at this mine, right? So there's a good chance that Eof, the dwarf leader, would have a way out, right? Well, she doesn't. In fact, she's panicked. And the reality is, she may have had a way out, but I felt that DM entity, Eof, the dwarf leader, she was startled because she realized that all her friends, some of her family, are about to die, right? So Grax is the only one with a clear head, and he says, listen, let's close the doors, right? So we need to close the doors, and what's going to happen is the rest of this floor, and let's seal the doors, right? So if we seal the doors, the rest of the mine is going to flood, but we'll have time to think. So they do. And so they do that. It works. The water is, flowing around them. There's some discussion of tunneling down further, but they don't know if how much river water is coming in, if it's going to flood whatever levels they go to, right? And then at that point, Duolos had enough time when he snuck down to see all of the 6th floor, and this is really fascinating. One of the things he saw on the 6th floor was a teleportation ring, right? Now this is fascinating. The only reason that teleportation ring was there was because I grabbed the map from 2-minute tabletop, which I cannot recommend them more highly. Their maps are absolutely stunning. And I had taken a map from Dyson Logos. I had actually gotten a map from Dyson Logos' free catalog, but this tabletop, this 2-minute tabletop map was just better. It was more colorful. So I put it in and I was using it, and it had this teleportation ring there, right? And so looking at the map, and at this point, I reminded Duolos, you're aware of all of this. You did see this teleportation ring. And he's like, oh, and it was right next to the room they were in. So he's like, okay, we're going to go to the teleportation ring. And I was like, well, if you open that door, the room's going to flood. So you'll have to act very, very quickly. And so he asked Eof if she can activate the teleportation ring quickly. She's the leader of the mine. She knows exactly how to operate it, right? And so basically he's like, so they need to move out. Now this is the part I love. The skills in Crown and Skull are very different than the skills in in Dungeons and Dragons. Magic the Gathering has realms of Dungeons and Dragons, and is essentially the same product in my humble opinion. Right? They're one and the same. MTG and D&D are so freely mixed at this point. I don't think they're distinct products at all. Right? Magic the Gathering, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Right? Yeah. You want to go to if you want to have Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, use Magic the Gathering or use D&D. It's up to you. Or you use both and you merge them exactly as they've encouraged in D&D in the D&D Monty canon hardback. All right. So, Duolo says yes, let's go. And one of the things I loved was he had to do a muscle. It was a swimming skill or a muscle skill, or even it was a survival skill. And Duolos had none of them, which means he needed to roll 6 or below. 6 or below, right? Which I thought that was fascinating, right? And so he realized he was going to fail that roll, which means there's a good chance he was going to die. He's just going to drown. And he doesn't, and he has no swimming. He's going to die. He's going to drown. He's going to drown, right? So this is because, and at that point, with Crown and Skull, I can just deny him a swim roll. Like I can just say you drowned. Like the game is really specific about it. It's really fascinating. So at this point, he says, I say, but Grax believes that he can get you and Eof to the teleportation, and he's going to muscle you away. And so he literally is using the skill muscle, right? And so Grax, this Dragonborn warrior, he's very strong, and he uses his, and he needs to roll under 14, which I rolled because it's a DM entity, right? He's allied to Duolos, but he's still a dungeon master entity. So we jump through, right? So Grax, Eof, and Duolos make it, right? There's 6 people left in the room, and I said, you need to roll a 1d6, and then at that point, you're going to bring through that many people. So that means that 3 of the people in that room are going to die. So he rolls a 3. Duolos rolls a 3, right? Just random, right? And I said, who are you going to bring? And he says, first I bring my brother. And I was like, okay, the only people left are 3 dwarves and Voronway, the cartographer woman that has the plan to overtake Vecna, right? Now, do you take your brother and Voronway and 1 dwarf, or do you take your brother and 2 dwarves? And he said, I take my brother and 2 dwarves, right? They get into the portal, and they are immediately portaled to a corresponding portal, teleportation circle. In Neverwinter under Tiefling Merchant Jesp's manse, this very big fancy merchant, right? And there's more to session 4, but we're going to cut it off there. Thank you very much for letting me share all of the action from Arbor Adventures Session 4, or some of the action from Arbor Adventures Section 4. In my humble opinion, what I just told, every single word you just heard was my humble opinion on the coolest parts of Arbor Adventures Session 4. The important part is when I hear your humble opinion on whatever you're excited to talk about today. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.